Greetings, friends. I'd like to do another installment on my series on Revelation chapter 4 through 7. And this one will be called When Death and Hell Ride. And when he had opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, "Come and see." And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him. And power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth, to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth. Revelation 6, 7 through 8. I believe that the first two and possibly three of the seven seals have already been opened. I could be wrong, I admit, but I definitely believe that in our time the white horse and rider is sweeping the earth, for the Antichrist spirit is already conditioning people everywhere to accept a new humanistic utopia as well as a new Christianity, and to anticipate the new Messiah. There is little doubt in my mind that the red horse of wanton violence has been released upon the earth. Many thought that the end of the Cold War would usher in a golden age, an end of history, because the last man standing was a benevolent superpower, the USA. Alas, the vacuum is filled now by a movement even more totalitarian, violent, and extreme than the communists ever dreamed of being: radical Islam, in both Sunni and Shia versions. Violence has been loosed upon the earth, and not even a superpower can stop it, for the new warfare is asymmetrical and decentralized. The same would go for Antifa and Black Lives Matter, groups which riot with impunity in Western cities, burn stores down, assault innocent people, and create mayhem wherever they go. The genius of all these movements is that they are like a swarm of bees rather than a bear for whom we could always build a big enough gun to shoot down. The communist leaders were ruthless and evil, but at least they wanted to live. They were coldly pragmatic. This new wave of violence is led by men who want to die for Allah and obtain their virgins, or by outraged and ignorant and pampered people who believe that they have the right to impose their will and to burn down other people's properties, and who hate our nation right down to the core. Now, I don't think the pale horse is riding yet in this prophecy, for we're given a tally of destruction that the world has never seen before. When these two riders, death and hell, commence, destruction occurs in which 1/4 of the population of the earth is slated to die violent deaths. First of all, the actual color of the horse. The Greek word is chloros, which is the color green. A corpse turns green when there's no antiseptic treatment of the body. Meat turns green when it goes bad. Chloros is the greenish color of death. The riders are both death and hell. That is, physical and spiritual death are personified and allowed to wreak havoc on the inhabitants of the earth, using 4 tools of destruction. How is it that as many as 1/4 of the population of the earth are destroyed? Well, the sword. There are wars of cataclysmic proportions that are going to occur. What we see occurring in the Middle East right now as secular governments either cede or violently fall to popular democratic movements is the beginning of this calamity. Islamists are taking the helm in nation after nation, removing the former restraints on the violent forces churning in the Arab world. Even a moderate nation like Turkey has changed right before our eyes, coming under the power of Tayyip Recep Erdogan and his Islamist party, which seeks to restore the caliphate and the Ottoman Empire. This will not happen peacefully. Iran is a menace and has enough firepower to have a nuclear war and to project nuclear power where she wills. This will eventually lead to aggression, particularly against Israel and the West. The disastrous wars that come out of this will utterly destroy Arab capitals such as Damascus and Amman, rendering parts of the Arab world uninhabitable. The whole world will teeter and stagger like a drunkard, as Isaiah 24 tells us. Judgment is coming upon the earth. Instability breeds instability. Thus the world is in for geopolitical tremors. earthquakes and tsunamis, which are of never before seen proportions. As Daniel tells us, and at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which stands for the children of thy people. And there will be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, everyone that shall be found written in the book. Jesus quoted this in Matthew 24 when he said, then shall be tribulation, such was never seen before and shall never be seen again. Another one of his weapons is hunger. War always leads to deprivation, such as hunger. Therefore it shall be as Jesus told us. Nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in divers places. Matthew 24:7. And death is coming. This is plague. It's part of the arsenal of death and Hades, in the execution of the judgment of God upon the earth. Part of modern man's pride is in his, quote, conquest, unquote, over the traditional diseases which once wrought so much misery, such as tuberculosis, measles, and smallpox. Devastating plagues are coming, for which there is no antidote other than turning in repentant sorrow back to our Maker, whom we have spurned. Some of these plagues, such as AIDS, come as a direct result of the accommodation to perversion, such as homosexuality. It turns out many of our world leaders, especially in the West, have found the plagues and the fear of plague to be a useful tool of control. Let me read Romans 1:27-28. And likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their lust one toward another, men with men working that which is unseemly, and receiving in themselves that recompense of their error which was meet. And even as they didn't like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind, to do those things which are not convenient. Romans 1:27-28. And finally, the beasts of the earth. There are beasts that are obvious, such as lions, tigers, and bears. And there are beasts that are lesser but powerful to destroy, such as rats. And there are beasts that are microscopic, such as germs. God is going to employ all of them in the time of the opening of the fourth seal to carry out the destruction of up to 1/4 of the population of the earth. These are the 4 weapons God told Israel he would bring upon them in the time that they refused to repent in the last days of Judah. And I quote Jeremiah 24:10, I will send the sword, famine, and pestilence among them, till they be consumed from off the land that I gave unto them and to their fathers. And again Ezekiel 14:21, for thus saith the Lord, how much more it shall be when I send my 4 severe judgments on Jerusalem, the sword and famine and wild beasts and pestilence, to cut off man and beast from it. Ezekiel 14:21. People are going to come to realize that Israel, whom they despise for the most part, is a microcosm of the human race. As God once dealt with Israel, offering the nation grace or judgment, goodness or severity, so does he deal with the whole human race. The frightening thing about this is, it seems that when the 4th seal opens, most of those killed are unready for death. For it is not just death, but death and hell who ride together. Oh, repent and turn to the Lord while you still can. Shalom.